Welcome to Love and Desire from the Sanctuary of Self, Rosicrucian Order Library, Part 2 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. The ancient mystical order Rosicrucis, also known as the Rosicrucian Order, AMORC, is a worldwide cultural, educational, and philosophical organization that is perpetuating the profound and practical teachings of the Rosicrucians. These teachings, as passed down and added to over the centuries from ancient Egypt to Europe and now all over the world, pertain to the mysteries of the universe, nature, and humans themselves. The Rosicrucian Library is a source of spiritual wisdom and insight that includes the important writings by the respected imperators of the order, such as Dr. Harvey Spencer Lewis, Ralph M. Lewis, and Christian Barnard. Today, we will continue with Frater Ralph M. Lewis's The Sanctuary of Self and the chapter Love and Desire in part 1 of his book entitled The Mysteries. After learning in the previous episode about the nature of self-love, or the physical love, we'll now look into the intellectual and the spiritual, or the highest love. Love and desire. There are also the intellectual loves, the desires of the mind. The mind, the active intelligence, as we know, can establish ends, can aspire to purposes. These aspirations are mental ideals. The mind seeks to bring them into reality, to objectify and to realize them, just as the sculptor brings forth a statue, so that he can objectively experience the idea he has in mind. The intellectual love is far greater than the bodily one. Its ideals are far more numerous. Each such intellectual ideal, though it satisfies the intellectual love in part, impels the love to create still greater ones, which bring increasing intellectual satisfaction. Whereas physical love, if indulged too frequently, may become satiated, intellectual loves ever increase the enjoyment they provide the mind of man. The ideals of the intellectual nature of man are knowledge and accomplishment. The intellect must become married to these ideals if it is to experience normalcy, regardless of what loves and gratifications man may have physically. Next, we consider the highest nature of man, the spiritual, interpreting that nature in whatever way we wish. Must we think of the spiritual love as being, in essence, extremely different from other loves, only because it seems more impersonal, that is, because it serves a greater self? Is not the love of man for God, for the divine, likewise a desire having a higher or more exalted end? It is a desire which is intended to keep the spiritual nature of man gratified. Plotinus, the great Neoplatonic philosopher and expounder of mysticism, said, "Love leads all things to the nature of the beautiful." Different loves belong to the different grades in the hierarchy of human existence. Spiritual love is the activity of the soul, desiring the good, one mystic has said. Namely, spiritual love is the soul's desire for what is pleasurable to its exalted sense. Divine love contemplates divine beauty, is the adage of a Sufi mystic. It may be interpreted as meaning that the highest desire of man, or spiritual love, is the inner urge to experience cosmic harmony or the divine beauty of nature. Such ecstasy satisfies the soul, just as somatic loves bring pleasure to the body. No one love of which man is capable is therefore unworthy or to be suppressed. Each love, those of the body, the mind, and of the soul, must be wedded to its respective nature. Such is mystically the marriage of the Trinity, or the marriages of man's triune nature. When a man dissipates his spiritual or intellectual loves, neglects them for those of the body, the result is degeneration and unhappiness. Spinoza has said, the love of God should be a love of the immutable and eternal, not stained by any defect inherent in common love. This love of God, for the unchangeable and eternal, takes possession of our mind without arousing emotions of fear, anxiety, hate, etc. In other words, a love of God is a love of that which never ends, which has no diminishing nature. It is the love of something that cannot be stolen, and of which no one can be envious. So it is a love that is free of the emotions that accompany the loves of the body. This intellectual love of the mind toward God is the very love of God with which God loves Himself. This intellectual love of the mind toward God is a part of the infinite love with which God loves Himself. In this we see that God's love is manifested in man's soul, as man's desire to love God, to understand Him, and to be absorbed into His nature. It is like a rubber band stretched between 2 points. Each point or each end of the band seeks to return to the center, the more that the other is pulled away. A Sufi mystic, Hallaj, has said, before creation, God loved Himself in absolute unity. Through love, He revealed Himself to Himself alone. Then, desiring to behold the love in aloneness, the love without duality, and as an external object, God brought forth from non-existence an image of Himself and endowed it with all of His attributes. This image is man. Briefly put, this means that the love of man for God is God's love objectively reduced to a lesser state, as a reflection in a mirror is less real than the object. Love of physical beauty, Plotinus and Plato tell us, is a legitimate first stage in the ascent to the love of the divine ideas. The body must love that which it conceives as beautiful, its ideals, so that its nature may be happily wedded and become healthy and normal. When this is accomplished, love of the intellectual beauty or knowledge is the next and second step in the ascent. When mental or intellectual satisfaction is had, then man is prepared for the greater love, the love of the divine beauty, the spiritual things of the world. There are then no single loves, but rather a graduated scale of loves. The real value of each is determined by its ideal. The more limited the ideal, the thing conceived as the beautiful, the lesser the love. What do the Rosicrucians say of love? From a Rosicrucian viewpoint, a rational approach to love is necessary. They realize, of course, that love is not merely an intellectual experience, but on the other hand, they also realize that it is essential to understand the causes of love, so as to be able to produce the most lasting effect. First, they say that basically all love is desire. It is a yearning or an appetite, if you will, for that which brings us pleasure. No one has ever loved that which brings pain, suffering, misfortune, or torment. Consequently, Rosicrucians contend that love is the desire for harmony. However, love of that which would be harmonious only to the physical senses would leave certain other loves unrequited. The love of the intellect for the realization of its ideals would be neglected. The love of the emotional self would be forgotten, leaving it torn with fears, perhaps. The love of the spiritual self to express its sentiments psychically would also be submerged if we were to concentrate on a love which brings harmony to the physical senses alone. Only as we experience the harmony of our whole being, all aspects of ourselves, do we experience absolute love, complete satisfaction. This absolute love is found in the health of the body and in its desire to maintain itself. It consists also of the love to exercise the creative powers of the mind and the love to express the spiritual values such as compassion and self-sacrifice. The unity of these three loves then results in that great Rosicrucian ideal, peace profound. Faithful viewers, we thank you for your kind presence for today's Words of Wisdom entitled Love and Desire from the Sanctuary of Self, Rosicrucian Order Library, Part 2 of 2.